guys and a microphone. Two bald guys and a microphone. Two bald guys and a microphone. Two bald guys and a microphone. Hello, we're back, and some people been wondering where we've been. It don't matter, cause right now it's happening. Same station, new day and time slot. Content forever is growing, we won't stop. Providing remedies for chemical brain freeze. And teaching reboot, stressing you believe. We're two bald guys and a microphone. We're glad to be back, it feels good to be home.
Good morning. It's Wednesday morning, of course. Time for Two Bald Guys and a Microphone. Right here, 2169. Big shout out to our good friends over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center. www.mchenrymassage.com. 815-385-8190. Massage therapy, acupuncture. Listen, it's a stressful time. Go and get blessed. Right there. If you're stressed, get blessed over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center. Of course, our good friends over at JH Events and Flowers as well, home of the $5 bouquet, $5 Fridays. Stop over there. Let them know you heard on 216 Net, and you'll get to check them out at jheventsandflowers.com. One of the longest, website names out there, of course. Also, just a shout out if we've got any 5K runners out there. We got any 5K runners out there this Friday, October 27th. It's a 5 p.m. start, and you too can run in a 5K for the break. The break, Crystal Lake Teen Center. We are a huge sponsor of them. If you just saw the brand new show, Let's Talk Local, yesterday at noon, airs every Tuesday at noon. You saw the break out there. Great stuff. Safe place for local teens. It's a really, really cool place. But they've got a 5K. It is the Monster Dash 5K. So you can dress up in Halloween costumes and go run 5K.
3 dots on your head, you can go as a bowling ball.
There we go. We can't. When you were both, we used to be able to put our heads together and make an ass of ourselves.
Yeah, we still do that.
Yeah, that's right. There are some sponsorships available. The sprint is for 500. You'll get a mention right here on 216 The Net radio. 21 million plus listeners, of course, here. And then after the race, the break has the spooktacular event, a night of misfortune. And that really starts at the 3:30. There's a trunk or treat for the kids. Then there's the 5K fun run walk. And then at the finish line, there's going to be fortune telling. There's going to be a party. It's going to be really, really cool. Good stuff. And of course, if I continue to babble on, I'm just going to continue to babble on and say, hey, after this, you're going to want to stick around for Metaphysical Meanderings with Master Psychic Lana Duncan Hartgraves. Later today, we've got Idea Climbing with Mark Carter. Just a bunch of good stuff happening all the time here.
And that's it for our show today. Have a wonderful.
That's right. And if you too want to be mentioned or be part of the family, reach out to us at info@216thenet.com. info@216thenet.com, and we'll get you our pricing guide. And you can get out there in front of all of our 35 plus million listeners. All I'm trying to do is communicate. That's it.
Communicate. And today we're going to talk about questions that will open up communication.
Okay.
So
what do you mean?
Well, what I mean is a lot of times we walk down the hall and somebody says it and they say, how are you? I'm fine.
Yeah, good.
Keep going.
Yeah.
No communication. And most of the time they're probably not even fine.
Right.
How's your day? Oh, it's great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
What's happening? Well, are we having fun yet?
Are we having fun yet?
But what we're going to talk about today is creating some questions that open up communication.
Yeah.
Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's with you're in a sales situation. What questions can you ask the potential client? Maybe it's an employee-employer relationship. Maybe it's a husband-wife or a parent-child. When was the last time, and I know you do this all the time, you have great communication with your kids. I've witnessed that over the last 5 years, but it always starts with questions. My grandsons will get in the car and I'll ask them, how was your day at school? But there's a rule behind the answer. They have to give me 3 things. They can't just say, oh, it's good.
Yeah.
They have to give me 3 things that happened at school, and then we'll talk about them. And sometimes we don't even get to the third thing
Right.
because the ride home.
Yeah.
So, questions. What are some questions that you've used over time that open up communication?
What do you mean?
Athletes. You've got an athlete who's struggling.
See what
What's
I'm
a
saying?
question you use
You see what I'm
with
saying, folks?
the athlete that opens up that communication so you find out what that athlete's really
I
thinking?
mean, what do you mean?
Well, what I mean is you got an athlete who has a tendency to lose her temper from time to time. And you're trying to get through to her and find out why
Hey,
she's
Toby,
doing
good morning.
that.
Well, who's on first? That would be a question that I use. What do you mean? Obviously, see, it works.
It works. It works. It works.
Who's on first?
What's on second?
Yeah, I don't know who's on third. Yeah. And those are things, right? I think it's important to, in communication, Coach. We're quick to throw our. Let me show you how much I know. We don't seek to understand first, right?
Right.
We seek to be understood
Sure,
first.
seems like there's a verse around that somewhere.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Shayna, good morning, says, what do you want? Works.
For a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. Is that's what do you mean? For me, I use it a lot. Up the ladder, down the ladder in the corporate world, and a lot of it is my ADH brain is going and going and going and going. So I have to say that. What do you mean? Right? Pete, depends on who I'm talking to, but another way to say it is, help me understand. Phil, good morning. Right? Help me understand what you're saying. And it's then the open, it's then the open dialogue. It's not a closed-ended question, but a lot of times I find in today's world, the communication is short, texty type things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say, what do you mean? So that they can expand on it. And really, I can understand what it is they're asking, if that makes sense.
Our friend and former co-owner, Ron Hostry, was an absolute master of this. And he had one question, and you use it all the time. I don't use it as much as you as I should, but how can I make your day better?
Yep.
Not how are you?
Yeah.
Fine. How can I make your day better? And it makes people stop and think. And you may not get a lot of feedback there, but they're thinking and opening up to more. You ask me that every day, and sometimes I have to stop and think.
Well,
how can you make my?
You shouldn't have called. That's what.
Don't call me anymore. Don't ask me such hard questions that make me think.
I think it's a lot of the questions. If you want to open communication, have honest communication. Is Tony Robbins talks about being that pattern interrupter, right?
Yeah.
Is that's why I say what color is the sky might be the question that they ask me, and to communicate better, I go, what do you mean? And they look at me like, what do you mean? What do I mean? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, what?
I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah. Right. Well, really, what do you mean? I mean, because the sky, everybody knows the color of the sky, right?
But do we?
Everybody knows we landed on the moon.
But
For those out on the radio, that was air quotes. But I think what we do is we hear a topic, we give a topic, and then today we're going to push back on it. We're going to fight about it. I'm going to tell you everything that I know about it, when you didn't need to know everything that I needed to know. So we are quick rather to be understood than to understand, right?
Well, and a lot of times we're listening, and as soon as we hear the first symptom, we start formulating a fix for that symptom, and we stop listening to the rest of the story because we got to hold on to that thought, and that symptom may just be part of the story as they get to what they're really looking for.
What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is, you know, I had a flat tire on the way to work today.
Yeah.
Well, you say, well, if you got a flat tire, take it over to Denny at Performance Unlimited, and you know he'd be
Yeah.
more than happy to fix your tire. That's not what I was. See, I had my roof replaced, and I got a nail from the roofing that caused a flat tire. Well, you got to go around and pick up all the nails. No, that's not what.
Right.
Right, and we never
Right.
get to the actual problem if we don't
The
sit
root
down and
cause.
listen.
Yeah.
So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll ask when I'm talking to someone, is it okay if I take notes? Because I might have questions, but I don't want to interrupt your
Yeah.
thought, and I'll take a few
Yeah.
few notes. But the important thing about this morning is asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure some of you out there, Toby Evans, good morning.
What's that?
Asking the questions of the team. My 6-year-old grandson, he's already in it. How was school today? Great. What did you do at school today? Wait, what was your favorite part of school? Recess. This is exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, trying to have just a conversation.
But so I guess a lot of people don't want to communicate, right? We go back to the kids, right? If you are a parent or an uncle, or if you've been around small children, toddlers, why? And to nausea. But the real fact of the matter is, I don't want to explain to you why, because your brain can't comprehend why. I'm your dad, and Dad said so, and that's why, right? So a lot of times when we want to communicate, we really don't want to communicate, and we don't know how to tell people, listen, I just don't have the time or energy to put up with your blowhole today.
Yeah.
Right. And that throws people off as well. Wait, what? Yeah. I literally don't have the time or energy to deal with this conversation today, right now, or in the next near 100 years.
But that's,
right.
And I have done that because I've heard you say that before, and I have done that. Unfortunately, I've done that with my wife, and that didn't work out so well. Just shut up and listen.
This is not a spousal communication show. But it's true, right? And that's asking the right questions. If I've got an interesting thing to say, or I'm going to be taking up more than 3 to 5 of your minutes, I always start out by asking a question, and I say, "Hey, I'm not interrupting anything, am I?" And the answer is yes. Great, I'll call back.
Yeah.
If the answer is no, okay, now I've got time.
Yeah, and you've told me I have time. So.
Right. So if if it's a non-important issue or something like that, I'm just checking in, whatever. And, and I don't have a lot of time to talk, then I won't say that I interrupt. I don't care if I interrupt you. Right. Like, hey, just wanted to let you know, thinking of you. Hope your day's going great. Blah,
but
blah, blah.
Isn't that kind of a prevalent thinking today? And that this is all about me, right? I'm going to call you when I have time to talk.
Yeah.
This morning, I had set an appointment at noon to meet someone over in Gurnee, and then last night I got invited to a 1:00 event on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
But it's with C-suite executives, higher level decision makers. And it would have been nice had the person invited me 5 or 6 days ago, but I reached out to the Sergeant Daniel over at the Lake County Corrections, and I just asked him, well, could we meet earlier? And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, sure, that's no problem. Instead of just going to the meeting and then, oh, am I going to get out of here in time? Not really being present in the meeting because I have this important money-making opportunity following, and we go in with our...
Well, the art of communication is lost.
Right.
Absolutely lost. Right. If you track history, we grunted, pointed, scratched things in the dirt. The next thing you know, we're putting emojis on cave walls, right? We're that's how we're communicating. Then it goes to understanding, oh, let's put it on paper, and then understanding verbal communication and creating words, sentences, things like that. Now we're back to emojis and written on cave walls, right? So we've almost come full circle, which is interesting. So when I say the art of communication is lost, it truly is. That's why people are in awe of people like Simon Sinek. Oh my gosh, he's so incredibly smart. No, if you listen, he doesn't have an original thought. There's not an original thought out there. What he is a good orator, and he can bring ideas to you that you go, oh.
In a way, you understand them.
Right.
A friend of mine, Chris Dunlap here in town, we were working together in the finance world, and there was a world famous economist coming to town, and he was at some place down in Chicago, and our company paid for tickets, and we went down and we sat through an hour and a half of this probably the most incredible economic discussion I had ever heard.
Yeah.
And it was amazing being in there. And we walked out. I go, that was great. He goes, what do you remember from that? I go, that it was great. It was so over my head that while I was in there and he's explaining it, I was like, well, at least somebody understands this stuff. But I walked out, and that was probably a moment in time where I made the decision that the financial industry was not for me.
This ain't going my direction. I get that, and there's a lot of that, and of course, depending on your brain, right? So, literally ADHD, I have all my life, right? But growing up in the 70s and 80s, you were just a hyper kid with too much energy, whatever. So to me, you got to grab me with something that interests me, and it's got to be 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Right. I find myself doing this an awful lot when it comes to communication. You can be looking me dead in my eye, having a conversation with me, and my mind is doing 17 other things and in 4 other places. And then about 2 minutes into your communicating with me, I go in my mind, oh shit, he's having a conversation with me. Right. And then I have to go, hey, could you say that again for me? I apologize. Right. And I don't say what I apologize for. I just, that's what I do. And then they go, sure. Right. Because as they were talking, they either saw that there was nobody home, right? Or they're like, man, he's listening so intently that I'm going to get a great answer. And I haven't heard a word, right?
One of the things I found out, and I struggle with the same thing you do, is when I'm talking to someone, I see everything.
Oh yeah.
And I've noticed people I'm talking to, and I'm playing the part of the other guy while I'm talking to him, and he's going, like, what are you looking at over there? I'm right here.
Right.
And so I really have to focus on being present, because if you're not capturing my attention, I'm
oh yeah. Or you hear the people in the booth behind you talking, you're more riveted by that conversation. And while you're talking, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't hear a thing they said. So a lot of it is I just say, hey, can you repeat that? Right? Can you say that again? But
I'm not sure I caught that. This is okay for
right.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Communication is hard today. It's just it's crazy. The one thing that people don't want to ever do is have a hard conversation with you.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, I've got to give you a bit of bad news. Right. Or what I perceive you're going to perceive as bad news, perhaps. Right. And I'll skirt around it. It's hard. It's hard to do that. And again, I think we've been brain trained in other word sense of the word,
brainwashed,
to worry about your feelings and oh my god, 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 right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but at the same time, it's harder to not deliver a hard message the longer it goes, and the outcome is worse and worse and worse. By the way, you're fired.
I hope that you really enjoy your next job. What?
Yeah. Let's keep it Dutch. Right.
I want you
So
to know this is nothing personal. This is just
Right.
work.
So the questions, I mean, you've got some questions set aside to ask, right? To better communication, right?
Right.
But we're so busy. We're in the car, we're Netflixing, we're 5K running, we're trick or treating. I don't know. I mean, this weekend, good luck. I don't understand why a lot of adults dress up, but a lot of adults are going to have parties this weekend and dress up as clowns or whatever. I don't get that anyway. But you know, it's so busy, so much going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you communicate?
I think it comes down to what's the purpose of your communication. You know, if I'm communicating with a potential client, an advertiser, you know, we just were in the green room talking about this. I'm talking to someone who potentially, in my eyes, could benefit from advertising either with us, Two Ball Guys, with 216 The Net, with one of our other shows. How do we ask the right questions to match them with the right program, with the right, you know, how do we develop those on the spot? Do we write questions?
Well, I mean, sales is its own booger, right? I mean, that's just the sales process, the sales everything. That's just, I mean, you know, because if you're in the sales mode and somebody's coming to you, people have their walls up right away, right? Normal communication, people don't. But I mean, there are times, you know, in your life, in my life, where they're like, you know, you walk into a room or I walk into a room and they're like, oh boy, here we do. Here, come over here into the corner and talk to me over here. And I don't want to make eye contact with Kent because, oh my God,
he's gonna want something.
He's gonna, right here. Oh, I'm gonna hear this. You know, oh boy, yeah. Let me guess, radio. Okay, right. So with that, you know, I mean, communication is such a broken piece of our society today. We ingest things in, as you know, we again been trained. If it goes 3 minutes, that's a long time, right? People get their news off the ticker at the bottom of a television set, which is 1 or 2 lines. You know, I asked my athletes, brilliant women who are you know, in their second year and first year of college, who are chasing their dream to change the world, and I said, I need you to write down and give to me what your job on this team is. Right now, how many, you know, they looked at me. One's like, well, I'm the point guard. No, that's your role. You play that position. That's your position. I want your job. What is your job on this? And of all the athletes, only 2 of them gave me more than 2 sentences. Right. And it's, you know, where we grew up saying, restate the question in your answer. My job on this team is, right. It wasn't that. It was just, here's a sentence.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
I shoot.
Right. Something of that nature. And I just kind of looked at it and I giggled and I'm like, I want to be able to take these women and go, listen, what is what's this mean to me? What's this mean to your team? Right? And the ability for them to communicate is, here's my sentence. You asked me. My job is this.
The introducing the help side defense to 6th grade boys.
Yeah.
We went through it. We walked through it. If you're on the ball, you're 3 to 4 feet away between him and the basket. Great. If you're 1 pass away, you're this far away. Position here. Great. If you're 2 or more passes away, you're here. Great. We walk through. They see it working, and we practice it. We put it in a scrimmage, and every player is guarding their person right here, and the guys are getting beat by layups. We stop. Tell me about the help side defense. Where do you go? Well, if I'm on the ball, and they can repeat it perfectly, but doing it is another thing.
Sure.
And a lot of
so is that your communication breakdown, or is that?
Well, to me it comes down to doing the thing.
Yeah.
Right. We can say, we can communicate, but can we actually do it? And doing it takes practice.
Yeah.
And until they practice it enough, until we as coaches stop the play so they can see the difference. I know when I stop play and teach a lot in the early practices, and the later practices and the games all go pretty well. But if I talk to them afterwards, when they're not in the middle of experiencing it, or asking that question, what could you have done that would have been better, opens that communication. So I like a lot what you just said, whatever it was. That was like 3 minutes ago. So
I
got it
don't
already.
know. We can rewind and watch this. Yeah, all right. That's okay. Time now. Come on, cursor. There we go. Boop, 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 boop. Well, time for a little brain train. My cursor's running off. There we go. Brain training.
That brain muscle. The one thing that we've discovered when we physically train, in the gym, and we work to get stronger, and we go, every other day, and we follow all the protocols. We get stronger, we get more fit. But then something happens. We sprain an ankle. We hurt a knee. We just don't work out for 2 or 3 months. We lose that strength. One of the things that I've discovered, I'm sure it was discovered by somebody a lot smarter than me a long time ago, is that with the brain training, once we do the training, it sticks. You get your time and your baseline training. You get it down to 55 seconds.
Yeah.
And you don't do any training at all for a month, 2 months, and you come back, you're still at 55 seconds. You don't lose the strength of your brain. Now you can continue to improve it, but you don't lose it. Once we create a neural pathway, it's there.
Yeah.
And that's what this brain training really is all about, is creating new neural pathways. It's the term neuroplasticity was developed in the 40s and 50s. They came along and said, anything part of your brain can do, every part of your brain can do it. We just have to retrain it. And they would take months and months and months to do that training. With the applied neuroplasticity that John Kennedy and the Kennedy method have discovered, is that it takes really about 30 seconds to start building new neural pathways, but then it's about rebuilding them.
Yeah.
And strengthening them. When you first make that path, it's like walking through the woods. You see a little animal trail, and you can kind of follow it.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you travel down that path, the more it gets beaten in, and the more it gets open. And the same thing is happening with the brain training. I'm having a lot of fun with one family right now. Mom and dad and 4 kids. One of the older boys is a golfer on the golf team at school, and the father asked if he would, if this would help him. And I said, sure it will. If you've got a brain, it's going to help. Oh, well, could you train him? I said, why don't we train your whole family so he doesn't feel singled out? And we sat with the whole family, and 4 children, very different attention spans, very different desire to do this at the beginning. But after 5 sessions, and we had our 5th session on Saturday or Monday night, it's just such a joy that the one girl, 7th grade, 6th, 7th grade, is the best one in the entire house.
Sure.
The 16-year-old boy is getting frustrated because the 7th grade girl is flying through this brain training. And to explain, it's not about her being faster than you. It's about you comparing to your former self. And what we find, yesterday, I was working with the McHenry County Conservation District Police, and 7 police officers in this training. And this is an environment, police, like coaches, can have a tendency to say, well, they have ego.
Yeah.
They have ego. And to walk in and be able to, check our egos at the door and go through the training, and watching these guys, adult guys, just have an absolute blast doing the brain training, but at the end of it, to watch their improvement and to encourage each of them to journal. We ask each of them going in, and this is a question I would have for anybody listening, is if your brain was working better, what would that look like? One of the things I've found out for me is I'm a better driver. I've noticed that I am more attentive to the speed limits. I'm more attentive to the other drivers. I'm aware of the other drivers. I'm not as distracted as I was, and I think that's a big benefit I've had from the brain training.
Everybody appreciates that.
Except the guy in the green van the other day. He, for some reason, didn't appreciate my driving style, but that's another story. You're not going to ask me what do I mean?
No, I
but with the brain training, our brain needs to be worked. It needs to be exercised. It needs to be challenged. That's why I'm still in this show with you, because you challenge my brain all the time.
Oh,
and it can be a little bit. John Kennedy, the founder, is working. We've got 5 schools we're going to be doing in the Chicagoland area this fall, where we'll be training the entire schools. So just a lot going on in the brain training environment. We're going to start doing some online training and just make it available for people to come in and experience it.
Nice.
It is really it's a real deal.
Nice.
I'm enjoying it.
That like any muscle, right? It needs to be trained. There's a great show right now, Live to Be 100, out there on.
You were telling me about that, haven't you?
On Netflix. It talks about the blue zones, and it talks about, I mean, especially at this point, once you get into your mid 50s, you are now, on early onset dementia, right? I mean, here in America, doesn't happen a lot in other countries, just here in America anyway. But anyway, that's a whole different thing and a whole different show maybe. But what are we communicating? How are we communicating? And if if your brain's not sharp, then it doesn't matter how you communicate. I mean, there are people who are deaf, blind, mutes who communicate.
Yeah.
Right. There are people who that are at disabled, that can communicate. Right. And sometimes there's frustration communicating with them. The big thing I think is in communication is again, is there time for this? Do we have time for this conversation, or do I not have time for this conversation? And if I have time for this conversation, I have to be able to say to myself or to the other person, okay, I have time. I'm going to be glued in here, right? The other thing is to be very open with everybody, I think, that you communicate with. I'm never, I'll tell people, all right, yeah, walk with me, do this, do that. Understand my mind is going 16 different ways right now, but you got me, right? I am way open to when I communicate, right? When my wife walks into a room at home, I have to close the laptop. I have to turn away from the computer screen. Or if I'm watching a Netflix documentary or something, I have to pause that, right? I have to eliminate as many distractions as I can so that I can communicate. because I understand my brain. I understand how I
Yeah.
work, right? So
Doug, to comment on one of the things you mentioned, dementia, and a lot of the research is pointing to dementia is related to dehydration. We're not drinking enough water. When our brain begins to dehydrate, our body is like, what do they say, 75% water.
yeah, 80, 90, yeah, whatever.
The
Yeah.
brain is like 95% water.
Yeah.
When we aren't getting enough water and the brain starts to dehydrate, that's when the synapses aren't firing completely. So drink water, lots of water.
Yeah.
Gallons of water.
I do too. It's just coffee flavored.
But on the other side of that, when we're doing this training, we've got brain scans that are showing that it increases the blood flow by as much as 15 to 20% in your brain. You actually feel your brain warming up when you're going.
Well, a lot of it, and next week we'll have Matt Birafato on the show. The Purpose Hunter. We've had him on years and years and years ago, but he's an author, speaker. He's got a great podcast, but he's going to be joining the show next week, and he talks about purpose hunting, and a lot of that is here in America. I was having a conversation with somebody here in America. They actually, I had lunch with a gal that's known me for several years, and she's like, man, there's just something about you, right? And I've never seen you happier. I've never seen you more at peace. I've never seen you, right? And I said, well, thank you very much. She goes, well, I mean, what are you doing? I said, well, I have decided not to buy into the American dream, right? And she kind of looked at me, and I go, no, listen, understand this. Growing up, as we grew up, it was get out of high school, go to college for 4 years, or enter the military for 4 years, get out, get a job, work for 30 years, retire.
Gold watch.
Right? Gold watch, retire. And for a long time, I'm 54 now. And if you'd have asked me when I was 24, what I'd be doing when I was 54, I'd have been like, I'm retired. And I've been retired for a couple years. I've got a nice house on the beach. I'm living the good American dream. Well, at 54, I've got 3 full-time jobs. I'm going from sun up to past sundown, and I'm having the time of my life because I have decided to build a life that I don't need to retire from. Right? So how do I communicate that to people? Right? And communication, as somebody will say out there, well, body language, whatever. Okay, I understand that. But I'm talking verbal communication. How do I bring that to people? Well, I continue to read books. I continue to stretch my mind. I continue to try to improve myself. I stay busy all the time, right? When I stop moving, that's when I go to sleep. And I think that it's important to do that. And I laugh and I have fun. And when people come into my world, so if you're in my world, I want you to be happy. I want you to laugh. I don't want you to cry. Right? I get it. Hey, we all have bad days. We'll all cry. That's okay. Right? I know a young lady who parents are getting divorced, and she's a strong lady, and she has shouldered and held in a lot of her emotions and whatnot. The other day, she's just crying and she's embarrassed. I go, don't be embarrassed. I said, we learned on Living Outside the Box with Lisa Efflin that tears crystallize differently with different emotions. So I go, your body needs to get rid of some of that, right? So if it's sad tears, they crystallize differently than happy tears, than tears that, if you've got sinus infection or whatever. So it's designed to get emotions and feelings out. So when you, I'm just like, man, just go ahead and cry. Whatever. Obviously, you feel safe here with me. That's cool. I'm not judging you. Don't apologize. You're going through a lot of shit. Go ahead. Let go. Right. And she thanked me, and then nobody's ever really taken the time to probably say that to this woman. Right. And it is what it is. But to me, I always want to communicate because I think that, especially speaking, is an art that we've lost, and that's how we build relationships. You hear inflection in my voice, you hear excitement in my voice, you hear concern in my voice, you hear, right? And you can connect with those. I could shoot her a text, say the same thing, and if she's having a bad day, guess what? She goes, "That fucker, what do you mean? Why has he got such an attitude?" Yeah, I'm not gonna cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, as we verbally communicate, I think it's so important. It's a lost art that we have here in America that we don't understand quite as well as we probably should.
You make me think, which is good, but you're right. How do we get back to it?
Well, you're an orator, right? I mean, throw a microphone in front of you, and there it goes, right? You of all people know, you've got more poems memorized and things memorized that and I'm like, wow. I mean, that's a gift, right? You're an orator. And we, when the pandemic hit, we took orators out of the loop.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean. We were able to turn off the camera on our Zoom and walk away. I'm in a meeting. I'm in a sales meeting. I'm in sales meetings right now with the bank, and guess what? Guess what happens? The bank, 90% of everybody on these Zoom meetings don't have their camera on. That tells me 90% of the people aren't on this call. Right?
You get that? And what do you think about that, Kent?
Oh,
Kent?
sorry, I was on mute.
Kent.
Right. So what we've said and what the pandemic did with Zoom and all this other technology is it has said, listen, oral communication, we don't need. Not important.
Yeah.
So we've now brain trained ourselves, right, to say, I don't need to listen to this. I've got better things to do. Maybe it's let the dog out. Maybe it's poop. Maybe it's finish watching a Netflix. Maybe it's working on a project. But I don't listen. I'm not going to have that camera on so they can't see that I'm at a bar. Right?
You better have the microphone on mute also.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you understand what I'm
Right.
saying? And so as we're talking about this show, we're talking about communication questions you can ask to better communicate. But the fact of the matter is, we have to bring back oral communication as important.
Yeah. Just to see who's actually listening out there, what are your thoughts on this topic? What are some of the questions that you ask to improve communication?
Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at oral communication as well, from the top, from the White House down, right? The orange person and the person who's in now, not the best community. I mean, President Obama could deliver a speech, right? Orally communicate, right? The last, not so much. The frustration that a lot of us Americans have is now the people who deliver the news can't. It's Ron Burgundy, whatever's on the teleprompter I read. I'm not even a journalist. I'm a model.
Somebody else wrote it.
Somebody else wrote it. Right. So a lot of the feeling, a lot of the emphasis, a lot of the ability to communicate, the passion, the emotion, everything that's in verbal communication has been lost. And that's why we tune out a lot. That's why I think you have to ask questions, right? I mean, you go to any public school today. You go to any public school today and you show me, you put them in a lineup and pick out the teachers from the students. Okay. Now, when we went to school, teachers wore a suit and tie.
Yeah.
Or a sweater and a tie.
They were dressed up.
They were dressed up, right? Today, and I don't know. And Toby went to school with me, so he'll tell you. Did we have any young teachers?
They didn't look young when we were
Right,
going.
they didn't look young. I go in there now and I'm like, oh my god, he's a kid.
What classes are you taking?
All right, I can't.
teach.
I really can't jump on this teacher because they're 25. You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, all right. But if you understand what I'm saying. So even in the school setting, our verbal communication is gone. We allow kids to get up and walk around in class. We allow, right? We have created a society where verbal communication is dead.
When cell phones first came out, they were like, don't bring it to school.
Yeah.
And then it was like, leave it in your locker. Today it's like, okay, you can take your cell phones out now. The kids have them in the classroom. My grandson's texted me while he's in class about what we're doing after school, and we wonder why they're distracted.
Right. Or they're doing this.
Oh, you got to put the hand up here.
Right. Right. You know, I taking selfies for the Snapchat, whatever, strings, whatever. And so that's our communication now. Oh my gosh, Lucy's having a bad day. Did you see her facial expression? Right. Oh my gosh, she looks great. It's a filter. We don't even know.
Well,
right.
We've identified the problem.
Yeah.
How do we fix it? Is there a fix for it?
There could be a fix, I guess. I don't know. Could be.
I mean, Simon Sinek could fix it, but how many people are actually listening to Simon Sinek?
Well, let's see what Demond has to say.
Demond, K. Ross.
Hey, what's going on, folks? You're listening to two bald guys and a microphone on 21.6 The Net. I am Demond K. Ross, and this is the Believe segment of the show. Today, we're talking about asking questions to improve communications. What I'm going to do is talk about something that is a very big hindrance to our ability to ask questions to improve communication, and that is living inside of our heads too much. When we live inside of our heads too much, we miss opportunities to hear what's going on with the other person. And the reason we can't hear what's going on with the other person is because we're not asking the right questions. Because our sole concern is ourselves, and is my message getting across? Is what I have to say going to be heard? How can I formulate what I need to say so they understand me? A lot of times when we're so stuck and caught up inside of our own heads, we lack compassion. And when we lack compassion, that means we have a super focus on our problems and the things that's going on with us. So we're not really concerned about what's going on with the other person. A great analogy that I heard about how to describe what compassion looks like. Compassion would be, say I have a broken ankle and you have a blister on your foot. A person with compassion will be able to acknowledge their own pain. So I can acknowledge I have a broken ankle, but I can also see your pain and acknowledge the pain that you are experiencing, and not make it a comparison, not say, well, what are you complaining about your blister for? Because I have a broken ankle. I can have a broken ankle and be in pain as much as you can have a blister on your foot and be in pain, and I can honor your pain even while I'm going through mine. When we lack compassion, we're not looking to ask those questions to find out what is really going on with the person that we're trying to have good communication with. And that makes things very hard to do. And the other thing that we do when we're in our heads too much and we're focusing so much on ourselves is that we don't listen with the intent of understanding. When we're inside of our heads, we're listening for how can I respond to this? How can I show my brilliance? How can I give my answer? How can I make my concerns be heard? Without trying to see what the concerns are of the other person that I'm trying to communicate with. So as you begin to, or as you continue to engage in conversations with other people and work on your communication, pay attention to the dialogue that's going on inside of your head and really think about what is it that you're focusing on. Am I really focusing on trying to find out what's going on with the other person, or am I super concerned about what's going on with you? Because when we're stuck inside of our own heads and so concerned about ourselves, we're never going to ask the questions to to find out what's going on with the person that we're in communication with. And that's where miscommunication happens. Because even if we ask a question, if we're asking a question trying to lead up to what our response is going to be, then we're not truly asking the right questions to find out what is really going on with the other person. So that's the one thing, the major thing that I've found that has been a hindrance in people within communication is people being so caught up in their internal dialogue and what's going on with them that they're not able to show the compassion for the other person and ask the right questions with the intent of listening and understanding what's going on with the other person. So as you continue to move on in life and continue to work with other people, be mindful of the dialogue that's going on inside of you. Put yourself in a position where you're being compassionate and trying to understand and really be effective in your communication with others. I'm Demond K. Ross, and as I always remind you, keep striving, stay humble, be bold, and always believe in you. Till next time.
Good stuff. I'm just sitting here, like, and I like what he says, right? I'm gonna use Toby for example. Toby, if you're still on, thanks for hanging in. He is an EMT paramedic, and he goes and does a lot of work around the country because of his specialty. When he talks, I'm going to guess that when he communicates, I'm going to guess that people listen. Why? Because they're like, uh-oh, I'm hurt, I'm sick, I'm something. He's here to tell me, what's going on, right? I'm sure at the same breath, when he's controlling a scene, perhaps, right, of an accident or a situation, that the people who don't listen to him are the ones who are caught up with what they want to do and not necessarily maybe they're not involved with the scene or that compassion isn't there. So I think that there's a lot of why do people listen to Google so much when I say that, right? Because they're caught up in their own dialogue. What does your doctor say? Every doctor says the worst thing you can do is Google this, right? Because you're not a doctor.
Well, so. Right at the beginning, he said about communication and how we're all interested in ourselves. Well, prior to my quadruple bypass, I was able to be in the gym, just not push it too strong.
Yeah.
But with my legs, I could do, my normal leg workouts. And a gentleman got to the leg machine before I did. And I'm like, oh, shoot, that was my last thing. And I could go, but I have to sit and wait for him. He's like, I'll be quick. So I sit on a machine. Well, he sits down, he puts one plate on each side, and he gets down, he uses one leg to push it up. I'm like, oh, now we're going to go through the other leg. The guy's doing something. But he didn't use the other leg. He got up, put on another plate, which is now 180 pounds on it, and then another plate up to 4 plates. Well, 4 plates is where I start. 4 plates plus the weight of the set is 518 pounds. This guy's using one leg, and he presses 518 pounds. When he gets up every time, I notice he's got a little bit of a limp. So I'm like, I'm frustrated. I want to get down and get out of the gym. Right. And I go up and I go, I said, you can leave those on. That's my starting place. We're good. You can just get out of here and let me have the sled.
Right.
Didn't say those words, but my attitude was probably there. And I said, I noticed you have a little hitch in your giddy up. Are you rehabbing something? He goes, he pulls up his left leg and it's an artificial leg. And I go, oh man, what happened? He goes, I had cancer when I was a teenager. And they had to amputate my leg to save my life. I go, oh, man, I'm sorry. Now I'm feeling like a schmuck, right?
Well, you should.
But still being a guy, I said, well, I could connect with you because, I'm having a quadruple bypass in 3 weeks. And, they found it from an eye appointment.
Yeah, the whole story.
So I'm like, give him my story. He goes, well, I had a heart transplant in 2006. I'm like, excuse me? He goes, well, the chemicals, the medicine they gave me to stop the cancer damaged my heart, and they kept it going as long as they could, but I had to have a heart transplant. At that point, I was not
I'm gonna go get some yogurt.
Yeah. in this communication. I was trying to get into one-upmanship, and I think we do that automatically, like Armand was saying. Are you listening with the purpose of understanding? And a lot of times we just want to, well, I did this, well, I did this, well, I did this, and then what was gained in that communication?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because of my occupation of producing and being a host and asking questions. And you and I have had a ton of guests over the years on multiple shows. And everybody always says, man, you ask the best questions. And I'm like, I'm just curious. Right. I mean, I literally sit in the best seat in the house because we get all these professionals and subject matter experts in, and I can just pick their brain. Right. Where if I was an employee with them, they'd be like, listen, quit bothering me with these questions. Right. Go get work done. So I've come to the point where in my communication with people, that's what I ask them. Right. I'm like, hey, when I'm new to college coaching right now, and I don't know all the ins and outs. And I was having a conversation with the athletic director, and I said, listen, I know you know, but I don't. So, for this year especially, I need you to really draw this out for me. When you send me an email that says super registration opens on the 23rd or whatever, I go, I have no idea what that is. Right. I go, I don't. So I don't know if it's important for me to attack, so I'm trying to open up the communication with the athletic department to say, listen, we just need to openly communicate here. And I don't want you to get upset when I say I don't know, because I don't. I've not coached at this level. Right. In this system, I'm not aware that, it takes, 10 years and 17 committees to ask for, $500 or something. You know what I mean? I don't know that. So I'm learning. But I've come to a point, maybe it's my age, but I've come to a point in my life where I ask a lot of questions still. Hey, I need to understand. To Damon's point, as I went through a lot of my life, I didn't give a shit about understanding. I want you to understand me, right? I want you to understand where I'm coming from. And it's taken me a long time to understand that's not good communication.
And it's part of the problem. I mean, if you put it up on a world stage, clearly Russia and Ukraine failed to communicate. Israel and the Hamas failed to communicate. There's a breakdown in communication in all places all over the world. When we break it down to a one-on-one, the biggest failure to communicate we have is in our households. It's in between husband and wife. It's between parent and child, child to child, siblings. So one question. That if I incorporated this question into my daily activities, my daily interaction people, what would that one question be that would help me improve communication with those around me?
I like, what do you mean? I mean, if you go back to that, again, it's who's on first. What, I don't know. Right. To me, that's letting you know, hey, I'm not catching what you're saying. So, I mean, what do you mean? I mean, and if you ask it inquisitively,
what do you mean?
Right. It'll be like go back to the beginning of the show where you're like, well, this is what I'm like. No, I'm laughing. I'm like, no, that's exactly what I ask people. I mean, what do you mean? I say that to my, I work with a gentleman, and if I don't get it, that's, what do you mean? Oh, and they may look at me like I'm dumb, but really what I'm saying is, you haven't communicated well enough to me for me to grab this. I mean, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
Right.
What do you mean?
Hey, is there a, is this the best pricing you can have? I mean, what do you mean? What are you asking for? What? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? So I think by that simple question is allowing me to allow you to understand that I'm not understanding and I want to. Right.
So that's one. The other question I'd like you to try out this week is, instead of how are you or hi, ask that what we call the Ron Hostry question. What can I do to make your day better?
Yep.
Now, don't ask it if you're not willing to do something, because somebody's going to say,
Somebody will.
well, you could give me a hand with this wheelbarrow.
Yep.
Right. But ask that question. What can I do to make your day better? And watch the wheels start turning, and maybe the communication in your life with your family, friends, and employees, coworkers, bosses, maybe it'll improve just a little bit.
I think so. Listen, we got to run. We're right at the back end of this. Next week, we got Matt Birafato. He is a great author, penned a book, Purpose Hunter. This is going to be a great show. And it's one that you don't want to miss next week. He's got a great podcast, just a great guy, good friend of the show. We're excited to have him back in studio for his new book, Purpose Hunting. Right. And it's good. It's going to be cool. Just in a half hour, come back for Metaphysical Meanderings with Lana Duncan Hartgraves. Idea Climbing with Mark Carter later today. Just a lot of good shows. If you want to be part of 216net, reach out to us at info@216thenet.com. But more importantly, go out, like, subscribe, ring the bell to our YouTube. We really want to grow our YouTube. So go out there, like, subscribe, ring the bell at 216 the Net YouTube. For all of us here, 216 the Net, until we meet again, I guess. This is what we got.
And my name is Tim Stewart. I am Coach Papa, and I do approve this message. God bless. Travel safe. Make this your best day yet. Now it's time for you to get off the bench and get back in the game.
Two guys and a microphone. 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 Hello, we're back, and some people been wondering where we've been. It don't matter, cause right now it's happening. Same station, new day and time slot. Content forever is flowing, we won't stop. Providing remedies for chemical brain freeze. And teaching reboot, stressing you believe. We're two bald guys and a microphone. We're glad to be back, it feels good to be home.